I was going to say it is Speak It Thursday, but it's not. It is Friday, and today is World Voice Day. Happy World Voice Day. The theme this year is One World, Many Voices. And of course, if you've been watching for any amount of time, you know that I am a voice nerd. By day, I am a speech pathologist specializing in voice. And today is the day that we focus on taking care of your instrument. The voice is, first of all, a beautiful thing. And when I first heard in voice class that the voice is the mirror of the soul, that got me. So we have so many levels to it, but your voice is how you communicate your ideas, how you express your emotions. We can do that through speaking, we can do that through singing. And then we have the voice of influence. So it's just deeper than your instrument, but it's what you do with that instrument. And I feel like today in this world, it is so important that you use your voice. But sometimes we have challenges with that. And we have a special guest today, Malia Morris, who is from the San Francisco area. She is a vocalist herself, a voice teacher, and she's an actress and all around amazing. Vocal pedagogy is her thing, the care of the professional voice. That's what she does. And she is a TikTok sensation. How about it? She does reaction videos, and that's how I learned about her. I learned that she does these beautiful just reactions, and just to see her face and how she responds to the videos is so amazing. And beyond that, she uses her platform to teach. Without further ado, we're just going to bring her up and we're going to show her some love when she comes on the stream. Hello, happy World Voice Day.
Hello, how are you, Julie?
I'm great, great, great. How are you for real, for real? You know, we have to ask people that these days.
I love that question. I love that we are breaking down like that it's okay to have different feelings, right? Not just the socially acceptable ones. I'm doing pretty okay. I think it's been a hard week. It's been a hard week to work. I feel like my brain's just been a little scattered, and I think whenever there is something that's on the collective consciousness, I feel it, I turn a little inward. I'm thinking a lot, you know?
Mm-hmm. That is. So, you know, I have to ask. I'm going to pretend I don't know what's going on, but what's got you feeling yourself and turning inward this week?
I think I'm a mother. And so when I saw I didn't look for it, but it was on the news, the video of Adam Toledo. That was, I think for me, it just kind of pushed me over a little bit already from seeing the news of Dante Wright. It just was a lot. And so I think, I think this is the thing. And this talks about, unleashing your voice, which is you don't have to feel politically any way about this to see the tragedy of this and to see how there's a ripple effect for everybody when these things happen. And so I just was thinking as a mother that no mother wants to get that phone call about their child and just how that would feel. And lots of fruitful discussion with my kids and just yeah, just lots of I think anytime this happens in the news, it's a lot of introspection and just like, what can I do? Like, I'm not an activist on a national level, so it's like, what can I do? What ways am I doing enough, and what ways can I do more?
Mm, that is the all around question. And I'm feeling you. Sis is tired. I'm exhausted. And like you said, sitting in meetings and we still have to show up. But definitely, I'm compelled to unleash my voice, use my voice more and more. And it's easy to sit behind our desk or to sit in our little safe and happy spaces while things go on in the world around us. But you said something collective conscious is very important. And you're right. If we're human and you see another human suffering, and it doesn't move you, that scares me.
Hmm.
I don't really know what else to say. But we're gonna get into that. We're going to talk about unleashing your voice, and we want to talk about some technical things because you're here and you're a voice expert. But I think also we can't help but talk about the intersection of voice and culture. And that's just
Yeah.
what it is. I don't know what comes first, culture or the songs we sing and the way we express ourselves, but let's talk about it. So, tell me more about the work that you're doing with vocal health and why so important in unleashing your voice.
I think it's sort of like any other thing. We have these institutions in place that are fantastic, but also have problems, and that it limits access for people. So I've always felt like even though I had the privilege of attending college and graduate school, there's still so much I don't know. I still graduated from my programs feeling like there's so much practical application here that I just don't know. So it was really later that I really dedicated myself to understanding like the pedagogical framework of like how the voice works, and how little I knew about it, even though I'd been studying it for years, right? Like the actual vocal function side. So I think that um, just thinking about that, that was really what got me into that, was that I was working with students or even just with myself. You hear things all the time, especially, as voice users, whether you're a singer or not, which is like avoid dairy or, yeah, I love your face. That's a big one that I'm always like, oh, let's look at the literature.
No
Um,
coffee.
yeah, right, right. And so it's all of this really specific things that people feel individually, and we tend to generalize it for the population. So I was really interested in just being able to help people have a better understanding or relationship with their body. That's really what it's about. Is like, how can you have a better
Mm,
relationship with your body? And if you know your body well, then, you know, you're going to be able to problem solve better for yourself without me.
hmm Yes, definitely. Empower your students. That's the key. So, how do you teach somebody to have a better relationship with their body? Because what I find when my clients come in, like you said, there's this separation. There's the voice, and my voice is not functioning well. And then there's my body and what I do. So, talk to the people. Tell them, how do you even begin to have a better relationship with your body?
I think what's interesting, and I don't know if this happens for you as a clinician, like in the clinic setting, but we are often feeling like we are not allowed to use our voice in in the most natural of ways. One common one that we use is a raspberry, which if you don't know what that is, that's a I'm totally fine doing for thousands of people or all of my followers, whatever. But for so many people, they come in and they are really uncomfortable with that because it's not really a sound that's acceptable. So if we can sort of just break down these feelings that like there are some sounds that are acceptable, there's certain ways that our voice should sound. This is what a belt sounds like. This is what head voice falsetto sounds like. And to just say, does it though? Like, does it? How about we just make some sounds and see what happens and then kind of go from there, as opposed to judging what it should look like. And I always relate this a lot because I am like an amateur weightlifter, but like, so it's so much the same with like a body mechanic. Like the way that I squat might be totally different from the way that you squat. It doesn't mean that your squat's bad and mine's, right. It just means that our bodies are different. And so much of the voice advice that we have been taught historically has been one generic sound, one generic ideal. And so what that does is it cuts people off from the relationship with their body. It creates this disconnection, I feel like, to what stylistically the voice should sound like, as opposed to what's happening. So it's a hard fought battle because a lot of times in lessons I'm saying, how does that feel? That's always my first question every time someone sings, how did that feel? And, inevitably when you're working with someone new, their reaction is fine, that's fine. And I'm like,
That look
okay,
they give
so
you when you're like, how did what feel? Like my voice?
yeah. It's like, no, everything. How did you feel? I noticed, I'll often say, there was one passage where I noticed an energy shift for you. Never using language that's like, I noticed that was really hard for you, even if that's what I'm thinking. I'm saying, I noticed an energy shift for you. I noticed there was a change in your body. Can you speak to that? Were you feeling anything? Was I just misreading that? Did something happen? And they'll often be like, yeah, it's weird. I felt harder. And I'm like, okay, so what happened? What's the sensation? And so it's getting them to just create the relationship to like this not being what's happening, this being what's happening. And I feel like the more people have a better sense of this, then the more efficient they become technically and stylistically. And I think that's why the work, especially on like, motor learning and brain, the fact that what we're bringing into the studio, into our day, is also affecting our vocal mechanism. It's just a more efficient way of people understanding how the voice works.
Mm-hmm. Speak it. You said what they're bringing in with them. So we have Byron Ross. He's an SLP here in Houston. We have Dallas in the house. We have Texas just here. Welcome everybody you're jumping in. Happy World Voice Day. I'm here with Malia Morris, and we're talking about the voice. I just wanted to say hi as we get back into it. You said something about the norms, right? That those norms, and I'm saying that in quotes, teach us or tell us how our voice should sound. And you're talking about the relationship with the body and in the speech world. And I'm happy to be able to participate in a conversation next week about beyond those hard conversations about norms. So when people are coming in to your studio and they are seeking services with you, but truly I find that people need just some life work. So how do you handle that when they're coming in before we can get to the raspberries and they have things that are bothering you? Do you do any exercises to help ground them or to help them just put all that to the side and tune in and tap all the way in?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I try to do a physical warm up with all of my students, where we're just kind of, get moving, just kind of having a conversation with the body. That's what it is. We're having a conversation. So you're moving your neck, are you feeling anything? Maybe we're doing some squat work or breathing or swinging. Um, Especially, I always start my lessons with asking how they're doing, because their body language and their response is going to tell me more than anything that happens that day. It's going to give me a setup to know how we can be most efficient that day. I feel like in this country, I think that people whose job is to interface with other people, whether that's in the medical field, as a doctor or as a voice teacher, an SLP, whatever it is, that so often we miss a critical chance to really ask people and to watch them and perceive what unconscious things they're showing us. And it's not because we're diagnosing them, but because if somebody's coming in and you're like, how you doing? And they're like, yeah, I'm good. You've told me what I need to know. So then I'm like, okay, so today we're going to have a conversation with our body. We're going to do some breathing exercises. I love to do, hands on the solar plexus and to just breathe. What is it? The in 4 through the mouth, or wait, in 4 through the
Mm-hmm.
nose, out 7 through the mouth. Do that a couple times. Just kind of talking them through things in that way. And I think that, obviously I'm not a trained psychologist. That's not my lane. So I'm not here to like diagnose or treat that. And I think that part of being a voice teacher is knowing the power that you have and also knowing when to refer out. I think that in both sides we can get in trouble if we're not acknowledging the student as a person outside of this classroom, which is really going to impact so much of what we're doing inside the classroom, right? Or the studio. But also on the same side, I'm not a therapist. So if there's really something that's going on, I can't solve that for you. So what we can talk about is what are the avenues that you can do to help yourself with that problem. And whether that's, referring out to a performance anxiety specialist or, talking about, it seems like there's a lot of stuff going on right now. Like, how are you feeling with this? Is this a productive thing for you? And, it's really funny because oftentimes when I have students who are having a really hard day, I'll say, it's your choice. You want to call it? Do you want to keep going today? And they're like, I want to do this because I feel like this is a safe space or a brave space. And so I think that's ultimately, people come because they want to learn how to sing, but that's not really why we meet. We meet because my job is to help them feel more connected to their body. That's it. And I think that that's what that chance is for anybody, whether it's yoga, meditation, martial arts, whatever it is that you're doing. It's that moment where you reconnect with yourself.
Indeed. Yes. Voice work is very transformative. Like you said, people come in thinking one thing, it's just the voice, but it's everything. The voice is the mirror of the soul. I'll say that again. And it's so foundational. And like you said, and to have these discussions and to provide a safe space. I heard you say that. And then also to help your students get what they need. And then also when we're in the voice world, so you have so many components to it. We can't do it all. That's what I'm hearing you say, but it's about meeting the client's need, helping them to, again, unleash their voice.
Mhm.
Now, tell me what happens when you have clients that come to you and they have vocal injuries, but they want you to give them like some sort of tea or a special little trick just to help them.
Well, especially with as my social media has grown so much in the last year, I have had clients that when I've worked with them, I've said, I'm not a good fit for you because you're looking for a tip or a trick, and that's not what I do. Or they'll say, I don't want to work on this component. I only want to work on mixing or belting. And I'm like, well, that's like you coming to me and saying, I want to get abs, but I only want to do crunches. It's like, it's just not going to be effective. So, unless you're willing to kind of work on everything holistically, I'm not a huge believer that you can really like pinpoint. I mean, and it's the same with the SLP world, right? Like if you have a vocal
Hmm.
pathology, you, there's not like one thing that it's going to be. It's going to be across the board, looking at your how much of your vocal energy you're using, how efficient you're being, are you, hydrating, all of these factors, right? So when that happens, totally will have those conversations with people because I feel like my professional um, name is on the line if I'm working with someone and they won't seek the help that they need. And on the flip side too, like that's a tricky conversation. Like I've had that conversation before, even with like laryngologists when I have students who go to see them because they've had issues, which is that I mean, oftentimes people will be told when you go to see a laryngologist, which is someone that specializes in, is a doctor who specializes right in the larynx. They'll often be like, well, they have to go work with certain types of specialists, or like you give them really rigorous things and then they don't want to do it. And so the question is, do I drop them as a client? And
Hmm.
the answer is, I don't know. I think it's a case by case thing of like working with people and seeing, um, just kind of seeing how it is. So I don't know, it's kind of a tricky line of like, or having the student that I'm like, I'm hearing something week after week and I really think you should go in. And then if they won't, having the conversation of, I don't think I can work with you then because I can't band-aid this for you, right? Like it's
No,
different if
that's true.
they're coming in with an existing pathology like nodes, then it's like, okay, where is it? Let me have a conversation with your doctor. Then we kind of know based on conversations with your SLP or rehabilitation specialist, then we kind of can get on the same team. But it's like, I can't fix it for you with water bubbles. I'm sorry.
We cannot. Or they want a shot or a lozenge or a special
Oh, yeah, I didn't even
gargle.
answer that. I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's okay.
I don't let my students get out the door misunderstanding anatomy and how it works. So I believe strongly that I love tea. If tea is a ritual for you to warm up your throat and feel good, by all means do it. It's just not touching your vocal folds. So
Hmm.
it's about the ritual. It's not actually about it actually impacting your vocal folds, and nothing is touching them. So no, I think um that's a vital thing that I wish more voice coaches in particular would spend more time on. I think a lot of voice teachers are already talking to their students about this, but I wish that vocal
Hmm.
coaches in general would educate themselves a little bit, taking classes and really understanding the vocal mechanism so that they can give their students the best information possible.
Yes. I saw on when I read your bio, you said that you're a coach and a voice teacher. Distinguish the difference. So, were you meaning vocal coach in that regard?
Yeah, voice
Because
coach.
there is a
Yeah,
difference for
so
sure. Yeah.
yes, 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 yeah. So what I'm referring to in the singing world would be a voice teacher, which means I work on technique, vocal pedagogy, and then the vocal coach side would be, I feel like most voice teachers who've had a career, they feel like they work like specifically in something that their
Hmm.
genres that they're comfortable with. So for me, that would be like musical theater, pop. Those are the ones that I feel really contemporary music I feel comfortable working on with people. Um, I feel like oftentimes people really would benefit from seeing a voice teacher when they're working with a vocal coach, because oftentimes if there's like some sort of like issue with something, then it can often be helped by looking at it from a technical or voice function perspective, as opposed to we just got to keep trying this riff over and over again. And if you just keep doing it, then it's just going to get in your muscle memory, and then right, it's like, no, let's look at seeing, why is that hard for you? Is there something that we can do to make it a little bit more efficient for you? And then, it's like, is it a function of them dragging up too much chest on the riff? Is that what's happening on an ascending riff? Is that what's going on? So anyway, so that's why I actually love working with my students on riffs. So that's what I mean when I mean voice teacher and voice coach. I think it's so hard because it's like such an unregulated industry. Like I could literally just tell people that I'm a voice teacher and voice coach and not have any you know, just
Yeah.
or I could take
That was
a
me throwing
workshop.
my straw at you, because unregulated is the name of the game, because we are in an age where if you call yourself a coach, then you're a coach or whatever. So, okay, keep talking, but I just
I like
needed
the
to
word.
say thank you.
I love that. I love the word style coach. I think that to me is like a more um specific term, because if you're a style coach, meaning like I help you with stylization on something specifically, because I think many people confuse a vocal coach with a voice teacher. And I think that's where people tend to kind of get in trouble, is that they'll find a vocal coach who maybe can't help them, and probably vice versa. Like if I'm wanting to work on CCM work, if I'm a worship leader, I have like tons of
Hmm.
worship leader clients. I love them so much. But like if they're going to say work on something stylistically and they go to an opera specific type voice teacher, stylistically it might not work for them. It just might not be the most efficient. Like they can help them on vocal function or whatever, but if it's not a good style fit. So it's like each way, right? So I think
Hmm.
it's less about that I couldn't work with opera students. It's that I don't work in that genre. So it's like you're not going to get the best work from me that way, right? If you want to sing something else, then I could help you with that. But actually now what you're seeing is a lot of people are starting to do, it's called cross training. I was actually literally just reading a book about it before you, while I was waiting, but it's called
Hmm.
cross training, which is like literally working with teachers across the aisle that you don't normally work with because they have different expertise to offer you.
That's good stuff. Okay, a son Taylor said, "Yes, I love tea as well." This is good to know, because again, a voice therapist is also not a voice teacher in that regard. I've had clients to come to me and they have vocal pathology, but they're like, "I want to sing. I want to sing." First of all, I don't sing, and they look at me shocked like, "What do you mean? You don't sing?" And I even had a client to say, this was a couple of weeks ago. He was like, "I know you can sing. I can tell by your voice and just how you use your voice and what you're teaching me that you can sing. You're going to have to sing for me one day." And I was like, "Okay." And I did. And he was like, "Oh, okay." And he got what I meant. And when I have clients that come in and they want to, once they're healed, because a healthy voice is foundational, right? Once
Yeah.
they heal and then they need more work, then I have to send them on. And you're saying that too, working across the aisle, collaborating, doing what it is that is best for the client. And I feel like we do our clients a disservice when we try to hang on to them, right? We know, "I love you.
Yeah.
I don't want to let it go. And I want to be the expert. This is my thing. This is my area." Like, I just love building relationships because it's not about us anyway.
And I learned so much from my SLP friends. Like I will, if I have a client that comes in and is like, I'm having this issue, I'm like, that sounds like a great conversation with an SLP. I
Mhm.
I can hear that you're having issues, but I'm not trained in this, so I don't know. So it would be a good idea for you to have a conversation there. So, and I think that takes a lot of humility, right? And I think that is doing the work. And that
Yes.
ties in too with just like unleashing your voice, which is like not being afraid to say that's something I don't know. I can't speak to that.
Hmm.
I don't know. I think it's totally okay with a client or with anybody to say, I don't know enough about that. I'm going to go do some research and then get back to you. So yeah, like there's a reason I keep all my what do I say? I keep my books, all of my textbooks,
Mm-hmm.
everything here. So that if I have a question, I'm like, I don't really know. Can I just 1 second? I'm just gonna look that up and then just see. I
Mm-hmm.
think that we would, as a people, just be better equipped to be willing to say that if we don't, whether it's in the greater world, just talking with people, or with our field.
Yes. Yes. You you used it. This is what we're talking about tonight. Unleash your voice. One world, many voices in this world. What would you say to someone, like you said, when you talk about confidence, do you think it's because you said something about trying to fit into a box? And I'll say this personally, that I think that can be problematic when you go to a person that's maybe not a style coach, that is not equipped, then I think that can impact the person's confidence when they're singing. So what would you say to the singer who is going to the voice professional who is not the right fit for them, but they are too, the voice professional is not leading them and they're trying to hold on to them? What do you say? How do you break away from that?
So I think ultimately you get to choose how you spend your money. I think at the end of the day, like it's a client-based service. And so if someone is not serving your needs, I think it's 100% okay to walk away. Um, so much of these relationships are about the relationship, meaning that if you could be working with someone who has the most amazing accolades in the world, but if personality wise or teaching wise it's not a good fit for you, it's not a good fit. It doesn't matter if they have all these credentials on the wall or all of these celebrity clients. If they don't
Mhm.
speak to you in a way that makes you feel safe or brave or comfortable, it's not effective. You're not using your money in a way that's efficient for you. And I'll tell, I have said this to clients before, that I'm like, I don't think I'm the right teacher for you, because if we don't have a relationship or a rapport or a working style that works, then it's a waste of your time and it's a waste of my time too, because I could be working with another client that would be a better fit for me. So I think that is the biggest thing for once you find a teacher. And I feel like this, it's really, really simple. If you go to somebody's website and they talk a lot about how they want to help you, but they don't give you any details on what their training is, that's probably a pretty good sign to you that they may not know as much about the vocal health, the vocal function side as they could. So I love
Mhm.
to just go and see what's their training. When's the last time they took a pedagogy workshop? When's the last time they went to a conference or a workshop or something? Just to show, because I don't think you have to have a degree. I really don't. I know that like people get into contention about that. And look, I went to an Ivy League. I know, I understand how that game works, but I don't think that even in that experience that you walk away knowing everything. I think that you can take on the ownership of going and taking workshops and reading books and doing the work. Like there's no program in the US that I know of that has a kind of system where you're training voice teachers in vocal function. Um, there are programs that are starting to begin, but it wasn't as common as it was when I was going to college. So I think the reality is you can find work though. You can it's just that the burden's on you. You have to go do the work if you're not going to go
Mhm.
get a degree. So I think that there has to be space there as well. Like to not uphold these boundaries and say like, well, only the qualified people in the room are the one rooms that have degrees. It's like, well, that's a whole other rabbit hole of like, you know, prejudice and privilege and lots of stuff there.
Gosh.
So,
Mhm.
anyway, my point to that is just that that's an easy way for me is go look at their website, just go see what their credentials are, see what they're working on. It's going to give you a good idea of the things that matter to them. And then the other thing is like a relationship. It's always a relationship. That's always what comes first. Like your doctor, if you're not a good fit for you and they can't relay the information in a way that's digestible or
Yes.
help makes you feel comfortable, then go find another doctor. It's the same with the voice.
Easy. And in some cases, like you said, when you discover it and it's a situation where as soon as you walk in the door and you know that, okay, you have done some very good marketing, but you are not who you say you are. In that case, I would say run. Run as
And
quickly
there's
as you can.
and sadly, I always say I try to hold grace with teachers because look, I'm
Hmm.
like they might not even know. They might not even know that like the information that they're teaching is not necessarily evidence based, right? So in that case, it's not so much about look at them, what they're doing is wrong. It's like, is it a good fit for you? Is it a good fit
Hmm.
for you? And maybe the reality is maybe for some people it will work. And I think that that's the truth of it is that for some people that will be efficient. My thing is when you have a vocal injury, when you start to have an issue that cannot be fixed by tips and tricks, what do you do? And then that for me is that's when you go and you find someone who can help you find solutions to be more efficient.
Definitely. And don't be afraid to go see the laryngologist if you're having
Yes.
persistent hoarseness and things like that. The tea, like you said, some things the tea, they'll make you it'll make you feel good and relaxed, but don't be afraid to go see your doctor. And if you're a professional voice user, it's good to have a checkup. You need to know what your baseline is anyway. It's just like if you go to the doctor for a physical every year, if you're using your voice to make a living, you have to take care of it like you take care of the things that you hold precious and dear to you.
Oh yeah, I'm so annoying with
Oh,
my husband when I hear him like come in with my water bubbles and I'm like, here you go, do this.
hmm. I'm doing
Because
water
I'm just
bubbles.
yeah. So no, I think yeah, and I think that is where the training matters because your teacher, if they have undergone training, like I'm working with a rehabilitation expert for singing at the University of Washington, and I'm working with her for the last like 6 months. And when you get these kind of trainings, it enables you to have a better resource to help other people versus if I'm just a voice coach, who's a good singer, but I don't understand anything about the vocal function side, then if my student's having something that I could mistake for technique or style, when in reality it's pathology, that's to
Hmm.
me the problem. That's to me that groundwork of like knowing, okay, I'm hearing something. I think maybe you should go get checked. I'm so annoying to my clients. I'm like, you should go see the doctor. And they're like, I knew you were going to say that. I'm like, well,
It's very important. Oh, you said some things earlier. So let's talk a little bit about the technical side. We're just kind of having a nice flow of conversation today. You said belting and you talked about riffs. So you like teaching people that. So for the non-singers like myself, tell me what's the difference? What's a belt and what's a riff and how do you even do it?
yeah, so a riff and a run. So usually a run of notes. Oftentimes I feel like a lot of people what they're thinking of like maybe they're calling it a riff, which is like just the general term I think for any melisma. But the melisma is just like when you have notes that are in succession. So it'd be like I'm trying to think of a riff like the big one is the I feel like the one that everybody does all the time is the Beyonce one from Halo. Da, 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 da. Yeah, that one. That slide. So that would be considered a riff, or some people might call it a run on notes. It's just taking notes in groupings and singing them stylistically, usually with some sort of rhythm.
Okay, I'm not sure what happened. Malia dropped off just as she was getting ready to teach us how to do a rift, and we're going to chat. So, thank you all for staying tuned in. Welcome to Speak It, typically on a Thursday, but in honor of World Voice Day, we are here today on a Friday. Thank you all again for sitting in the audience and get ready if you have questions for her. If there's something that you want to learn, something that you would like to know, make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com, of course, slash Shuli Gibson. And we try to provide content that is very much helpful for you. And she is back. Welcome back.
I'm
You
so
just
sorry.
That's okay because I feel like the internet, like like to call it, it was just not letting us be great because I was about to get my best riff life. But go ahead. You were telling us about riffs.
I'm sorry, just talking about riffs. Yeah, so it's just usually a
Yeah.
grouping of notes that are sung stylistically. So it could be really simple. I think today in like internet culture, it's like the longer, the more complicated riff, the better. But the
Hmm.
reality is like you can just have like a baby riff that's just a couple of notes. I'm trying to think of examples. I haven't sung much today, so I'm trying to think of examples. Like if we're doing um the big one that people like too is Yeba. Do you know Yeba? So
I think I saw
you
a video.
wait for me. That would be considered where she goes da 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 da. She does like a little riff up there. So I know people are gonna be like, she's a coach and she's not singing. I'm sorry, it's different from me teaching people than it is from me practicing my singing that day. So it's just like usually for most people, it's all about specificity in terms of gosh, how would I explain this? Like, one is people often clench and they hold on to the notes too much. So they're kind of like getting too in the notes. So if you're singing, my evergreen, and you're holding on to the notes so much, you're like, my evergreen. What you're hearing, right, is medial compression. I think the compression, I'm singing louder than I need to be. So a lot of it is like, let's relax a little. I would, my gosh, you hear me? Am I there?
I hear you. No, you're
Okay.
good. Yeah, you're
So
good.
I'll usually have them try it on water bubbles first so that they can just try it. So it would literally just be and then maybe on a trill. My evergreen. So then part of it too is the rhythm. So it's not just the notes, right? It's like evergreen. It's technically the notes, but it's not with the, syncopation or the rhythm. So
Okay.
that's
And what does
a
that
lot of
do?
them.
The straw, so the straw and the trills,
Okay.
what do those two things do? I'm gonna let you talk
Yeah.
about it.
So those are called semi-occluded vocal tract exercises. All that is to say, it's a very like specific way of saying we're letting less air come out. And so what it does is the air that would generally come out of the mouth is sent back to the vocal folds. And what happens is when it connects with the breath that's coming up through the lung, or from the lungs up through the vocal. I can't think of the word. What is this?
Oh,
The
your vocal cords or through your larynx,
no, no,
voice
no,
box?
no. Below it. I can't think of the word right
Oh,
now.
trachea, your
Thank you.
windpipe, your trachea.
I was like, why can't I think of the word?
No, 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 that's okay.
Yes, here you go. Here's the lyrics. So as it comes up through here, so as this air that's coming up normally is meeting with the air that's being pushed back because we're occluding, closing. What's happening is it's connecting, and what it's doing is it's creating less pressure between the vocal folds. So it shows the vocal folds that you can make sound with less contact. And so in a lot of ways, especially with water bubbles, if I'm speaking to an SLP, so this feels really stupid, but it's a voice rehabilitation. So a lot of times it feels more like a massage, especially depending on the type straw that you use. I feel like most of my clients with water like a drinking size. Is that what you find?
That's what I find. They like the drinking size. I used to do the coffee stirs a lot, but I don't know, I started doing it more of a hierarchy or a progression, if you will. But most people, I just stick with that because the water will give you the resistance you need. So if we need to do a little more water, we can. But
Yeah.
I just learned a new technique that I'm excited about.
Really?
I mean, straw, not just, I mean, it's something that I've done where we've done the straw, right? And we've done the water. But I was on, this was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So you start out in the water and then you take the straw out of the water and then you take it out of your mouth, but you're still maintaining the note. I haven't done that before, so that was something new. I've done straw out of the water and I've done straw in the water. So I'm just going to do one simple note. You can do it your way for the people, but
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. In fact, so the work that I've done with Dr. Reagan at University of Washington, she's a big fan, especially for students who have pathology, to do the floaty ooze. That's what she calls them. So
Mm-hmm.
doing I usually use a smaller straw. They're right there, but
Mm-hmm.
so they'll do the because it gives us
Mm-hmm.
a baseline of where people's voice are at. If you can't do a quieter ooh, then it gives us some sort of feedback or information on like what's going on and then where we can go as a singing specialist, not obviously as an SLP, but it gives us some kind of idea. But I love order of operations. My husband always says I use that wrong, that term, like order of operations. I'm like, whatever. In my mind, that means that I love starting with the most pressure in a water bubble, then moving
Mm-hmm.
to maybe just a straw or a
Yeah.
and then going to, or how do you, I don't know if you've ever done this, but I'll have students do a phrase. So if we're doing, I keep singing yeba, but if we're doing yeba and maybe one part is difficult, we'll say, why don't you
Mm-hmm.
trill that and then come in when you're comfortable? So for me, so that they can kind of get the sensation of what it feels like to have less breath coming out, and then what it feels like
Mm-hmm.
when you're singing normally. And
Yes, for
oftentimes
sure.
they're like, oh, okay, I'm feeling a difference. And then, we go from there.
But for me, when speaking, because when it comes to singing, that's like a no die. So you're gonna have to say, what do you do with people who are tone deaf, but they think they can sing or they want to sing? I should probably take a
Yeah.
lesson just to see if I could really do it.
So there's really exciting science on the side of this. In fact, I've been taking a semester-long class with a researcher named Heidi Moss at the San
Mm-hmm.
Francisco Conservatory for Music. So a really interesting story about her is that she had Bell's palsy, and she was one of those people that continues to have symptoms, like a very small minority that continues to have symptoms. So she has paralysis. So she's a researcher and an opera singer. So she's done all of this research on the brain and how so many misunderstood things about the body when it comes to singing and the brain. So one of these things that we know is oftentimes, like culturally, we say, oh, like it's the ear. And so much of it is really the brain and allowing the
Mm,
brain to have a conversation with what's going on. So one of the best things to help students, per her work, which I found to be really true with my students, is to have them use a tuning app or some sort of app where they can see a visual representation. So I'll have my students use a guitar app. And so if they're singing a note, like a whatever, ooh, then they can pull it up and sing it, ooh, and it will tell them what the note is. So we can match it and say, I'm
ah,
reaching for my piano, but my piano's off. But like reaching in for like, oh, look, like that was a little below. Can you try and see what happens if you sing it again? And so it gives them a bio visual feedback to what they're doing, as opposed to me just saying, try it again, try it again, try it again. I mean, I think part of the reality is kind of like with harmony, where like the more you do something, obviously you become more. I think the relationship between the ear and the brain probably gets strengthened, right?
for sure.
But
That makes sense.
the brain, for sure, having a visual feedback for people and using something like guitar tuning apps, super incredibly helpful with pitch.
Nice. Because I just feel like I need to be able to do it. I need it. I just have to. I have to.
And
But
also
we
to remember too, like pitch is like variable. Like it's
hmm
variable, meaning that I feel like there can be some sort of like dogma even around that, in the sense that like most people are not, even in contemporary music. I don't know if you knew this, but like what we know is that in contemporary music, it's usually like a half step like flat. And then in classical music, it's a half step sharp. So like the way that our ear tunes is perceptual. So much of it is perceptual. It's not just like one golden rule, if that makes any sense.
that really does, but it goes into like you talk about culturally too. There are certain things that I feel like are more acceptable in cultures when singing. It's the difference in going to, I don't know, a Western, more white church and hearing Amazing Grace versus going to a Black Baptist church or something like that and Amazing Grace, and just the style and all of those things. So how does that play into, well, this is my question. When you have people come in, right? And do they look at you and just say, "Can you really help me based on the way you look?" Like, style, I'm trying to pose this question, like you have different styles of singing, right? And you have people that
Yes.
do different things, but you have what you want your voice to do.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that play in? I don't even know what the question is really, but I got two different things forming there.
Okay, so if I'm thinking about this question. I think the ear is a beautiful thing in that like we naturally mimic things. So
Hmm.
I feel like we do this naturally. Babies do it. Babies mimic. And so um when a sound is desirable, people often mimic it. And I think that is when you can have a conversation with someone about, is this sound native to your anatomy? Because
Mm.
oftentimes people are trying to mimic a sound of maybe a soulful singer that in a way that's not native to them, and they can run into trouble. Like I just had a live with another SLP where we were talking about this, with really common with contemporary singers, retracting the tongue and dampening the larynx to get that hello, that really like like resonance tracking back here, just like,
Yes.
it's me, it's very soulful. That's not a native sound for me. I mean, and even on the flip side, I'm Polynesian. So when I go into auditions, sometimes they'll be like, can you sing like the ethnic number? I'm like, actually, my voice is much more legit. Like I have a much lighter quality to my voice. I can mimic a Jennifer Hudson belt, but that's not where my belt lives. So I think if we can start to really kind of step away from the idea of this is what a belt sounds like. This is how a black person belts. This is how
Hmm.
a white person sounds. And to say there's just so much anatomy and variation, and it's less about this is how you should sound and this is how you should sing it, and just understanding the relationship of what feels natural and right for you. Because what works for me is if I am constantly depressing my larynx, and singing in a way where I'm mimicking like that, it doesn't work for me. It's more fatiguing, it's tiring over time. That's what I mean. There's no prejudice
Hmm.
behind the sound of like, black people should sound like this, Polynesian should sound like this. It's like, no, it's just a conversation of what's working for you and what's more efficient.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. And like you said, in this world, when you said that, the hello, that's the sound where I feel like people kind of start to develop a sound, or it becomes a trend where you hear one singer doing something and then you
Hmm.
hear all of the other singers doing it. So I'm glad
Yeah.
you I'm glad you talked about that, the mimicking the sound, or some people would call it mimicry, or whatever the terminology. Now, I work with transgender individuals on gender affirming voice, and I do get the question. So I am a transgender woman. I love singing, but I'm not really sure how to navigate the shift. I don't know how much experience you have working with, the population as it relates to music, but what would you say to someone who is doing a pitch change just in general, and they want to maintain their singing voice but do it in their gender?
Yeah, so I don't have tons of experience working with the
Hmm.
trans community on voice changes. The conversations or the workshops that I've attended with friends who work a lot in those communities, are a lot about, I think it would matter to where they're at in their transition, like if they've started taking hormones and how that's impacted their sound, right? And so then it's a relationship of like once you've started that, then we start to sort of see what they're comfortable with. I think was it Maurice who posted yesterday, which is like the voice is the voice. Like it can make a ton of different sounds. I mean, so it maybe part of that work is them feeling comfortable with knowing that it's your voice, it's your voice. And so you can
Hmm.
make whatever sounds you want without feeling like maybe your sound is too masculine or maybe your sound is too feminine or whatever
Hmm.
the stereotype is.
Well,
Um,
that is a part of the dysphoria, right? With the voice and the
right.
fear of, right, the voice sounding too, in the case of, transgender woman, the voice sounding too masculine, and feeling comfortable, yeah, with the new voice, and really they want the voice to match all around, just for it to feel like who they are inside.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
would love like that is an area that that's still because of the research and because we're getting more and more people that are having this experience and that gives us more data points of like what works for them. That's definitely an area that I am still learning about for sure.
But it's just, yeah, and the area is so expansive, just in general. Doing voice work. We didn't talk about your TikTok.
Oh,
So the work that you do, and I'm saying the work that you do on TikTok, because first of all, your reaction videos, and the one that I played, that, what is it? Making the person cry. That song was so beautiful. But you do the reaction videos. Tell me about unleashing your voice and utilizing TikTok as a platform to educate people about their voices.
so I was seeing a lot of reaction videos that were very subjective, that were based on like, we're going to take singers that are usually professional singers and we're going to debate their voice. Which is always kind of a weird thing because it's like the voice is so subjective. Like I could sing something and you're just like, it's not for me. And then I could sing for somebody else and they're like, I love it. And so it just doesn't really matter, even as a voice teacher or a vocal coach, what anyone's thought is on your singing. What I was really interested in is what's happening anatomically, what's happening with the resonance, what's happening with the brain, what's happening with their body, with the breath. So having conversations and reactions in that way of like, you know, if somebody's doing a breath challenge, it's like, let's talk about breath for a minute. Like how does the breath work? Like, is it the same for every person? Like, is it about getting as much breath in the body as possible to sing a long phrase? Is it about not worrying about the breath? Like, there's just these swinging, you know, opinions either way. So it's like, let's look at the research. Let's talk about what we know. Let's talk about what we don't know. Like, we just don't know. That's what I feel like with mix, when people are like, that's a beautiful mix. We don't know what mix is. Like, we have some ideas of what we think it is, but we don't actually know, like, specifically, because it's different for every voice, right? So that's why these conversations, I think, are important. So I was really interested in just kind of talking about, you know, as a voice teacher, what I'm listening for, and then taking away the stigma of like, is that good? Is that bad? So
Yeah, voice wholeness, voice wellness, all of those beautiful moments. And like you said, I just appreciate your face when you're like, when it's something that you really like, you can tell, like, oh my gosh, this is just so beautiful. But no matter what, you're always giving the people something that they can take with them and use to be better in general. And I think that in itself, you talked about activism. What I learned, I did a show back last year that talked about activism because I wanted to do more and be of help. But the person is a local activist here in Houston. And he was saying, just by you being who you are and doing what you do, that is a form of activism because you are in spaces and places. And when you show up and honestly providing a safe space. So just to let you know, you are an activist. And as we talk about unleashing your voice and with everything that's going on in the world, what would be your charge or challenge to the audience? And if you just had the microphone and you could talk to everybody and anybody in the world.
I think if you look at my videos, there's a really common theme of like treating people with respect and kindness. Kindness just doesn't really cost a thing. And so I think I say that in my bio. I think it says kind person or like kindness, because there are unfortunately a lot of people who work in this professional field who are not, and I've worked with many of them, teachers in the past, that make you feel like your job is to sound a certain way or to be a certain way or to do something a certain way. And that's just not the job. That's not what this calling is. So I think if anything, it's like to use your voice to be as supportive as possible. Like I've done this many times where there are people who have been made fun of in videos for their singing, and I'll go and I'll react to it. And I'm like, look at all the things that I love that they're doing. Because it just doesn't matter technically. It really doesn't. What matters is if they find joy in their singing and it makes them feel good, then that's what we're here to celebrate. So I think that is for me what my social media is really about. And I probably would have even more followers if I posted every single day and I just churned out reactions all the time. I don't. And I won't even, I get tagged sometimes in really viral videos and I just won't react to them because if I don't feel it, I'm not going to do it. And it's not because the video is bad. It's just like if I can't have a genuine feeling about it, then I'm not going to manufacture it for just to get views. Because I feel very strongly like social media for me is a tool. It's not my career. I'm not like trying to parlay into like being a full-time content creator. I think that's great for those, but I value my work. I like the work that I do off the screen more than any video I post.
Yeah, and I appreciate the work that you do, and it makes me feel good. It makes me smile when I see it. And like you said, in the way that you do it is very helpful. So many teachable moments in those videos. And then also, so the voice and music and what it has done for people during this pandemic, I think has been amazing. Music can heal us in many ways that we don't think about. So when it comes to music and it being healing, do you have someone that you listen to that just makes you feel like all the warm and fuzzies, or you feel like it gives you guidance or anything like that? Who is your person or your people?
Yeah, I have many, and they don't make, there's like no connection between any of them. There's an album by a composer called Max Richter that's Vivaldi, and he reimagines contemporarily what Vivaldi's music could sound like. I turn that on when I'm like getting ready. I also love this song by Dawn Richard. Do you know, is Dawn Richard, wait, Richards? She was in That
I'll
Girl.
look it
Do you know
up.
what I'm talking about? Anyway, she has this song called Van Gogh. It's just like a vibe song for me. I don't know what
Hmm.
it is. Have you ever heard it? Oh, it's so good. It's just like,
Okay, so now I'll listen. I'll have to look it up. I don't know
yeah,
names when it comes to
it's
singers and actors and actresses. Sometimes I have to look them up. Like that
it,
person that played in that movie that sang that song.
yeah, right. No, so it's just like go, baby, go. It's just a really like, I don't know. It's a good vibe. I like that song. I also love Novo Amor. It's just very like, my husband calls it like my like hippy dippy chill music. Like if I'll just like turn it on in the evening and relax to that. And then I really love Leon LaHavas. Do you know her?
Mm. Okay, so you're giving
She
me some knowledge here. I'm like,
okay.
Beyonce?
Yeah, oh gosh, yes. Come on, Formation. Yeah, oh man, I have watched that Netflix special so many times. And I'm usually like chewing out my kids on certain parts and then being like, okay, you can come in and sing this part. Um, yeah, but yeah, no, I love music. Like I don't really have like a specific style or genre that I gravitate to. I mean, right there we covered like classical,
Hmm.
contemporary, R&B. Yeah. So I just like music. And I love, because I have students like across the spectrum of like, in a day I'll work with like a worship leader, I'll work with a, contemporary like pop singer, then I'll do musical theater, and then we'll bounce into like, I don't know what you would call it, like the more indie like Billie Eilish sound, like the
Mm.
don't you know I'm no good for you, like the very like vocal fry, that kind of
Yeah, I
thing.
like that.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's the fry, but I like it. It's a good vibe too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the it's cool, like the history behind it, right? Like the that bedroom sound comes from amplification, because you didn't used to sing that way normally. So like by having the microphone, it allows us to have these like sexier bed. It's like literally called bedroom voice, you know?
Ah, I did not know that, but that was one of the trends that I was thinking about because a lot of singers did have that. So,
Yeah,
hmm,
yeah.
I like it. I like it. Yeah, you can. For me, I'm pretty mainstream, I guess. So yeah, and Adele, for sure. Haven't heard
Mm-hmm.
anything from her in a while, but
Mm-hmm.
music again has been. I just think it's been the thing that has gotten us through this time in a lot of ways. And I'm so appreciative for it. I'm so appreciative for you. As we get ready to close out, I feel like there's so much that we can talk about as it relates to music and the voice, but we won't hold you. I do feel like maybe I need to do a video with you trying to teach me how to sing. I think that might be a good little field
Oh,
trip for me, like a virtual field trip. That would be
I would
fun.
love that. I will trade you for any of your SLP training. Like that is an easy way to twist my arm.
Okay, let's do it. We can do it.
Thank you
Okay, as we
so
get ready to
much for
get out of
having
here.
me.
Oh, you're welcome. And shout out to Maurice Goodwin. I love him. I know you through him. I think he shared
Oh,
your work on his Instagram. He does a great job of just amplifying all of the voices in the space. He's
yeah,
good
I
people.
I love him. He's such a good resource, and that's when you talk about activism and using your voice. I think that is the place where we miss maybe the biggest impact that we can have, is like, how are we interacting with people, and are we giving each other grace, and are we speaking out? I had a video that I did, a reaction of a guy who was saying just deplorable things to people of color, women, um, people in the LGBTQ community. And so I took the video down. I wasn't aware that he was saying this stuff, but I took the video down and I issued an apology and just said, like, even if I didn't know, I'm so sorry for like reacting to this person, not knowing this, because I feel like I want this to be a space that's safe for everybody. Like this isn't a space.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had that video, the one that God Bless the Broken Road. In it, there is a part where you see two of the guys, and they're sitting, one is sitting on the other's lap. And the comment came up of like, are we just not going to talk about that? And like someone laughing about it. And I was like, what is there to talk about? Maybe they're dating. Maybe they like sitting
Mm-hmm.
together. That's how we talk about it. The end.
Yeah.
And they came back and got kind of defensive and said, well, I wasn't saying there's anything bad about it. And I said, well, if I didn't even respond. It's like, obviously you did though, because you made a
Yeah.
comment about it. So it's like, it's just not tolerated here. So
Yeah.
I think that is where in our interactions in daily life, being an activist doesn't require you standing in a protest. It means
No.
when those things happen, you speak up and you say, that's not okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely in the essence of it. We need everybody in what they do and what they do well. Like you said, that grace is a word that you use that is just amazing. And we have to have grace for ourselves and then also grace for other people. And you're right, because when we're online, it's easy because we're hiding to make fun of people. And when we do that, we don't realize that we're dehumanizing someone else because
Oh
we're
yeah.
making content out of whatever it is that they're doing. So we definitely have to be careful. And thank you so much for that. We need more people like that to just step up. Like you said, it's not hard. Activism is not hard. Using your voice is not hard. Unleashing your voice is not difficult at all. You can do it with your voice shaking,
Mm.
scared. When we say unleash your voice, speaking up for people, speaking up for yourself, loving on yourself, there's just so much to this, but it's just simple. It's just doing it. What everything, the whole thread of this, you've talked about, it doesn't have to be perfect at all. It's just like you said, tapping into your body, tapping into who you are. You said that at the beginning of the conversation. And I thank you so much for the work that you do. I thank you so much for who you are and happy to have met you in these social streets.
Yeah, I'm happy to have met you too. Thank you so much for letting me come on and chat. And I have like 800 questions for you. So
Okay. We'll
I
we'll
thank you
chat.
so
Yeah,
much.
we'll chat offline for sure. Now, how can people find you? We don't want to get off without people knowing how can
Yeah.
they stay connected with you?
So if you'd like to follow me, I'm a Malia Voice Studio across all the platforms. YouTube. I'm not on YouTube. I mean, I have a space on there, but I'm never on there. YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. TikTok is my largest following. I have 150,000 followers there, but Instagram's my favorite. I just feel like it's a little bit more personal. It
Mhm.
allows me to be. There's so many comments on my TikTok. I don't see them, so I like Instagram just for that more personal, the one to one is what matters to me. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's Malia Voice Studio.
Thank you. Good vibes. And as I get ready to get out of here, I think we've had so many nuggets, so many things. Oh, she said, a son, Taylor said, I just found her on TikTok. TikTok, love her content. She
Oh,
is a
thank
TikTok.
you.
Yeah, she's a TikTok person. And I can't do this show without her. Thank you so much, Asan Taylor, for your production and your assistance. I thank you so much for Bella Smiles Cosmetic and Family Dentistry. I thank you to the Speech and Voice Care Center of Houston, to all the people who support and sponsor us. And if you're tuning in on Hope Over Hurt Radio, thank you so much for listening. Make sure you follow us and just stay connected with us on YouTube. And then the podcast is available wherever you get your podcast. And this season is all about the rise, elevating people. These conversations are geared to inspire change. So as we leave, I say ashe. Good night.